right, hello. Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
My name is Dylan.
I'm Elle.
And we're here with our new podcast, We Both Love Soup.
And we got that name from the Best in Show movie where, what's her name?
Jennifer Coolidge's
Thank you.
character is married to an extremely old gentleman, and they are being interviewed. And in there, I mean, so clearly that they shouldn't be married, and she's trying to justify them being married. And one of the ways she does that is saying, "We both love soup."
We both love soup. You know how she talks. I can't do it.
If you haven't
I'm not
seen
doing
that
a very good
movie,
imitation.
It 100%. You find it, watch it,
Yes.
on repeat. It's very, very good. Eugene Levy.
Yes. Great movie. Anyway, so we had decided that was a good. We often quote that movie all the time when we're discussing our friendship and how we met and why we have so much in common.
Movies and songs. And when we had our list of top 20 names for this, many of them were song titles.
Yeah.
Actually, quite
The
a
Cure,
few of them.
The Smiths.
Learned that I failed my children, or one of my children in particular, musically because she had no clue where one particular lyric came from. And it was a little heartbreaking, not going to lie. But anyway, we both love soup. And what we wanted to talk about today was how we met. And also just a little bit about life right now and friend circles and the difficulties in meeting and maintaining friendships as you go through various walks of life, particularly now in this world of remote and not going into offices, etc. So,
right. And we are the exact same age. We're actually, 3 months apart?
2 weeks.
2 weeks apart. What am I thinking?
Apart.
And that's another thing, we have in common, in addition to soup.
To both have soup.
But, and so this is also talking about how it's so hard to make friends at our age because, how do you make friends when you're in your 50s?
And I would say it's not even just our age. And we're in our mid 50s and our prime 50s. But I even see it with 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds because the world has changed. It used to be the places you made friends were your childhood friends. Then you had like your family friends, your cousins and people like that. Then you had the friends in university and high school and whatever. And as you got older, you had friends because you had kids and they had friends and you were doing activities with your kids or you were at work. And now with work being remote and with aging out and your kids being gone, suddenly those ways that you would normally traditionally meet like people of like interest aren't there for you anymore.
Right.
So what do you do?
And you might have had those friends, like I still have friends from childhood and high school and things like that, but none of them live near me. And that's the other struggle that a lot of people have is making friends in the community that you're currently living in. For me, I moved to the community that we currently live in 5 years ago, and I had no friends. I had no one. I knew no one. And that was why I decided to put out on Nextdoor. And I'm not sure if all communities have Nextdoor, if that's just a strictly California thing.
It's a national thing, but it might be more used in California.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, I posted on there, hey, my husband and I just moved here, and does anybody want to go to the wineries? And we live in an area that has many, many wineries. So I met 12 different couples, and my husband and I started going out to the wineries and things like that. And then that kind of inspired me to post another post on Nextdoor. I wanted to start a book club. And so I started a book club, and I said the same thing. I said, I'm new to the area. I'm interested in starting a book club. And 10 women answered that one. And,
myself included.
And that was how I met Dylan. So it's not like me. I am a very introverted person. It is not like my personality to get out of my shell and try to do this, but I was so desperate. I did not have children, so I didn't have friends, with I was never friends with the parents of my kids like most people are. But I have now found that most people our age, their kids are grown and they're no longer have that much in common with
No.
their.
I used to spend more time on the soccer field, soccer sidelines, and with soccer families than I did with just about anyone else for years, and until that was over. And while I'm in touch with a few of those people still, geographically, they're over an hour or more away. I see them infrequently. I talk with them. One of them happens to work with me, again, remotely. But other than that, those relationships kind of ran their course. And even though the course was 10 plus years.
Right. And what you realize is that when you get done with a group of people, like I used to meet people from playing volleyball, my husband and I played volleyball. What you realize is that if you just meet people through this one little aspect, you find out that that's all you have in common with them. And that can be challenging as well. And so even though I've met 12, 14 people from putting these different Facebook ads, I mean, out of those 12 or 14 people, I only met one Dylan. I only met one person who also loves soup. You know, so that is a challenge within itself. But at least by putting myself out there through this Nextdoor, I opened myself up to a group of ladies who are all lovely. I mean, the other women are wonderful. And we go to wineries and we have book club and we have bunko and we do things together. But, you know, Dylan and I really clicked. We both bike.
The funny thing was, though, for our first meeting at this winery.
And this might tell you more about me than about Dylan.
No, it was not a love at first sight for either one of us. I came across as standoffish to Elle.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be sticking with this. You know, I did the Nextdoor thing because I just was going through the sort of withdrawal and the sadness of having lost my soccer group of people. And I'm like, I got to do something else. I'm about to turn 50 because this was 6 years ago. And I was feeling a little directionless and decided to go. But it wasn't oh my gosh, these are my people type thing. It wasn't until a little bit later that we got to actually talking that the similarities between our upbringings and then our ideologies and even how our husbands became so clear that it was like, well, Jesus, we need to like each other.
Yeah. I did not like Dylan when I met her. It is funny. I don't really like a lot of people when I meet them. I'm odd that way. Maybe it's casting my own insecurities onto other people. I don't think anybody likes me, so therefore I don't like anyone else. Something like that. I'm sure there's some childhood mental...
Well, it was a real stretch for you, after I got to know you, for you to put out something on Nextdoor like that is so
I know. Now you know that about me. That's
out
so
of
weird.
your sphere. Yeah, that was like, wow. You moved into, I got to do something mode because that is not...
Yeah, I am...
Wasn't a big part for you is you felt abandoned by the people in San Diego who wouldn't make an hour freaking drive out here.
That's a huge thing. So when I moved here, 6 years ago, I had this group of friends. It kind of goes back to I didn't have children. Again, I think I've said that, but and so I keep losing my group of friends. So when I was in my 30s, I lost my friends at that point to having children. And then all my friends became younger, 10 years younger than me. And then I lost that group of friends to having children. And now I'm getting to the point where I might start losing my friends to having grandchildren. But so when I moved up here, I had already started to, I don't want to say lose my friends, but they were not becoming not as close to them as I was. And then when we moved, I think they sort of took that as a insult that I had moved away. And then, so I came here knowing no one, and they would not drive the hour up here.
Yeah, they were also pretty critical, right, of, you live in the sticks now.
Yes, I live
Even though 1 hour drive away.
Right.
And Californians, for those who don't know, we don't talk in terms of how far it is in miles. It's always in time.
Right.
So this was a time thing, including
Traffic being
traffic.
what it is.
Would have been an hour.
Right.
Or less for them to come
and
see
I
you.
drive down there once a week for my business. And
Yeah.
yet no one comes up here.
amount of time for people to spend, and it was like you'd moved a continent away.
Right. And so when I came here, it was just like I was so bored and so lonely, and when all you have is your husband, and I literally had no one else, that's it. You're kind of, I was forced into it, and I really was like, how am I going to meet people? And my husband and I had gone to a winery, and we looked around, and we're like, oh, they look like they're our age. But we're not. My husband is very antisocial and would never, in a million years, he's very Californian. He does not even talk to people.
He's native California. He's never lived anywhere outside of this 40-mile radius.
Right. And Dylan and I are from the Midwest, and we have a theory that Midwesterners are much more outgoing, or not outgoing. That's not the right word. Y'all come is what.
Yeah.
You're all. Everyone's welcome.
Doors.
Everyone's welcome.
Came in.
There's no limit to who's invited to every occasion, and that's just the way we were brought up. And you don't have a place to sleep tonight. Oh, we got a room. You can stay at our house. That's the way we were brought up. Yes, yes. You need to borrow a car. That's no problem. That's how we were brought up. And so for me to even do this, my husband was a little shocked for me to do this, but he just was like, all right, well, all right, I guess it's a way to meet. And he enjoyed it because even though I say he's antisocial, he's sort of socially antisocial, where he would never go out of his way to meet people. But once he meets people, he can actually carry a conversation, and he likes to be around people. Mm-hmm. He's just not the kind of person that's going to go out of his way to meet people.
And he's selective too, right?
Very.
It's he doesn't want 100 pennies. He wants 4 quarters.
Right.
Type thing.
And I used to think that I wanted 100 pennies. I used to feel that way. And now at our age, don't you feel like I want the 4 quarters too?
Yeah. Maybe not even 4.
Maybe 2.
More about that later.
A few more. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And even me responding to it, I'm a little more outgoing than you, just by nature of the career I've had and having to be that way.
You don't mind talking on the phone?
I don't mind talking on the phone.
I hate it.
When a phone rings, I answer the phone.
I do not.
Because I have to. I've had to do presentations in my life, and my life has been about that. But even looking on Nextdoor and almost like doing that blind friend date thing, I waffled on it because I'm like, this is the epitome of desperation. It felt like for me. I'm like, I seriously don't have friends.
I was desperate. I was desperate. I had to do it.
And I just had to rip the Band-Aid off and say, I'm going to do it. Like, I don't know even if I'd even told Ed that I was doing it. I just went off and did it because I was fully expecting it to just be a crash and burn.
You say that it seems unlike me to post the ad. I feel like it almost seems unlike you to answer the ad. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which I find interesting about both of us. Yeah. We must have just been both. It was the perfect storm to meet each other. We had to meet each other somehow, right? That was.
I feel like desperate's a harsh word.
Desperate.
We're good with words, so pick a different one. Because here, I don't think I'm desperate to meet friends, but and I don't think you guys were desperate either. But there's another word to describe that.
I don't know. There was a sadness.
There's a sadness.
Would you
loneliness?
You having gone off to college, and me, I used to know what I was going to do 3 nights a week driving you to practice and every weekend. And I knew the people I was going to be with and the amount of fun I would have with that. And I lost that. And I lost it like that when you went away to college. And when I say it was desperate, I mean, it was dark times, man.
Right.
Dark times.
And there's just this loneliness when you have nothing to do.
Yeah, maybe it is.
And boredom is
and
huge.
Loneliness. I think, I think that is a better thing. I mean, the desperation just comes from sort of our internal neuroses. But what it truly was, I was boredom. I didn't want to go to work. Every day was seeming like the same, right? Get up, go to work.
It's like Groundhog's Day. You literally get up, you go to work. And both of us have always worked from home, even prior to COVID. And when you're not even leaving your house, you have no interaction with human beings other than, you through meetings online and me, the occasional. Do I say phone call? No, I never talk on the phone. But never getting out of your jammies, it really feel completely, what's the word I'm looking for? Drawing a blank. Just bored, I guess.
Yeah.
That's not the word I was looking for. Sometimes at our age, the words do not come when you want them to.
I
Yeah.
think mine's bored. Mine's like I'm jealous of other people my age having friends, and then I'm like,
Oh, you
wait,
know,
why don't I have
FOMO comes.
FOMO.
Yeah,
There you go.
FOMO
Dive into that one.
definitely came into things because social media makes it look like everyone else has got their act together,
Right.
And that like further punctuated it.
Oh,
as
you
I
know what
start
it-
comparing myself to, I'm 49. I was 49 at the time, and like, oh,
That's right.
all right, now
We
what's
were in
next?
our 40s. That's so bizarre. That's so
What's
bizarre.
next? And having been married, I married my childhood sweetheart, so we've been together a long
Forever.
time.
Forever.
Since 1979, and we have a lot in common, but
You
we
don't
can't-
both love soup?
we don't both love soup. That's
We have that'll be a whole nother episode.
yeah, that's a whole nother episode.
We'll unwrap that at another time.
But it was like, I was feeling, is this all there is? Is this my next chapter? And how do I start writing that next chapter? And so that's why I answered the ad. But like you did it twice. So, I mean, you did the winery one,
Great.
which I wasn't part of the original. I'm not OG to that wine group. I'll never can claim to be OG to that. But the book club one was after the wine one. So
Yeah.
it was still, you hadn't satisfied
I think because
yourself with the wine one.
within the wine group, most of this group of friends that we've met are about 10 years older than us. And not that that's a bad thing. It's just, I was really looking for maybe a few more people closer to my own age. And there was one, I think, who is the same,
Yep.
same age as us. But the book club wasn't any better because it was really the same thing. I think you again were the
Yeah.
only one that was closer to my own age. And what really the FOMO and the jealousy, that's a huge thing. So my best friend, in addition to Dylan, in the whole world is my cousin Meg, who I have known since before birth. But she lives in San Jose, which is about an hour and a half flight away from here. And I would go up and visit her every couple months. And she has this amazing group of women, all our age, all absolutely in line politically and physically. And, they're all real active. They all bike. They're just they're amazing women. I'm going up next weekend to see them. And I would be so disheartened when I would come home and either my friends in San Diego were 10 years younger or the friends here 10 years older. So again, not really finding my peeps. And I've always said, I just don't know how to find my peeps. How do you do that in a town? And again, Meg met all of her friends through the stroller striders when their children were all itty bitty and have known them for.
And they didn't move away, which is
None
a
of
bit
them moved
unusual.
away. Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
I mean, a lot of that.
Right.
Even though we've lived here now over 16 years, those people are gone. They've
Right.
moved away.
Right. A lot of that's, California is a somewhat transient state. It doesn't seem like it. Seems like people would move here and stay here forever, but it does seem more like people move in, people move out.
Yeah, Meg's been fortunate that her group stayed together.
Yes, and they're they're good friends, and I spend a lot of time with them. We do trips every year, and they're wonderful. But I'm on the outs. I'm not in with
But geographically,
on the outs.
you're isolated.
I mean, they're very
geographically.
welcoming when I'm with them, but I definitely do not feel like I have been friends with them for 18 years. Like her friends have all
Yeah.
been friends for 18 years. Excuse me.
Yeah, so it was good timing because,
Right.
like I said, I was feeling lonely, trying to kind of reevaluating like what was going to be the next thing. I considered, still working full time limited me because a few of the things I had been reading about as ways to meet people were like, join a tennis league at the time. I was doing more tennis than pickleball, but that's another thing. And golf or some other activity that brought group of like women together, because what you learn about us too is, and another reason that we both love soup and we're fairly active. We're not like uber, oh my gosh, CrossFit crazy type people, but we're not sedentary.
I'm
And
not
so-
running a marathon anytime
no, we're not,
soon.
none of that.
No.
Not if someone's chasing me with a knife kind of thing. But we also aren't, let's just sit around and eat and drink all the time, and that's all we do.
Right.
So I thought, okay, I'll do those things, but it doesn't fit in when you have, even though it was a remote job and I had a lot of flexibility, I couldn't carve out the 5 hours to go golf regularly. I tried a couple of times to do it, and I couldn't stick with it, not with the regularity. Or they would schedule it, well, it's a 9 a.m. We're playing. Well, I can't play at 9. I can play at 3. Oh, that doesn't work for you. And so that kind of crossed that off for me,
Right.
and pushed me into that. I've got to do something more radical.
and mine was the same thing as well. Like, we both bike as well, and cycling is a huge part of mine and my husband's life, and it has been for years. And so my original thought when we first moved here is I will join some of the local bike shop morning rides. Well, the morning rides start at dark 30, and I'm sorry, my body just does not move at that time. So I just could never get up and join them. And then we did do a few of the afternoon rides, but again, what ends up being bike shop rides end up being a lot of guys or really aggro women. It's just never ends up being quite my peeps again.
We've been trying again that recently. We revisited that last year with going on a couple more of the bike shop rides, and we thought we had a couple on the hook. We were like, oh, there's maybe 1 or 2 potential ones there, and it just didn't pan out for us. Because
the worst thing also when it comes to meeting friends at our age is the follow-up. I did meet a wonderful woman on one of the bike shop rides, got her deets, put them in my phone. Have I ever reached out to her? No, I have not. So that is another aspect of this that is tricky, is the follow-up. And I am not one to, again, put myself out there and say, I would like to get together with you, because I think the fear of rejection is always there.
And we don't have our parents anymore to set up those play dates.
Right.
It's up to us to
make
find
our own play
dates and
dates.
make our own play dates.
Right. And that is a challenging thing at our age, because there is that fear of rejection. What if I reach out to this person and they say no?
They ghost you, and they don't follow up. And
we have so many people in our group that are so busy. And that we don't understand at all. Both of us still work full time. We're relatively full time.
Yeah, only one in our current friend group that do work
full time.
Full time.
Yeah,
and I think we are the most flexible.
Absolutely.
You could, and on a dime, hey, you want to go catch the Barbie movie, or do you want to go do this, or let's run out and get Thai food. It's an act of Congress with some of our people. Even when you have them booked a month out, something will inevitably come up. Now, a lot of it's related to grandkids. We've noticed that grandkids kind of, they're on the hook for...
or children, really.
Some of them, they're kid related, but it just shocks us how inflexible
yes,
they are. And we are very spur of the moment kind of thing.
Right. And maybe it's, maybe there is something to people... Oh my God, my brain just... I had a point. And I do.
Well, I hate to draw those generational lines, but we're Gen X, and the other people in that group are boomers.
That's true.
With the exception of the one other person you had mentioned in our group.
But she has kind of a boomer attitude. It's an odd thing.
Yeah, she kind of does. But yeah, we're very clearly, when you read the description of Gen X, I can hate drawing these little buckets, but gosh darn it, whenever I read that,
absolutely.
I'm like, yep. And even when people I work with, I can peg someone's age without seeing their picture or even hearing their voice by the way they're acting and how they write their emails. I'm like, oh no, or then if it's an Xer, you totally get who the Xers are.
Right.
And yeah, that boomer attitude is kind of exhausting at times.
It is. And there was something about COVID too that just made people, they're tired of the
amplified.
They just can't handle
boomerness.
Yeah, they can't handle anything. And they just don't have the patience
pivot
for anything.
Is not a word in their vocabulary.
No.
They cannot pivot on the time. No pivoting.
No pivoting.
No pivoting at all.
And if you're Gen X, you know what I meant when I said pivot. And people don't. That's the other thing is meeting friends that when you say a movie quote or a song lyric, they absolutely are right there with you and they get what you're saying. That's a rarity that is just a wonderful thing to find. If you can find it, search for it, but you have to search for it, and that's kind of our point. Our
Yeah.
point is, and we do have
Yes,
one,
we
is
do
that,
have-
that you do have to put yourself out there, and you do have to be patient, and you have to, sort through and allow yourself access. We were just talking about how no one, like I don't follow through, but also not being the one on the other end who's always too busy. If somebody reaches out to you, reach back, because that's the worst thing in the world, to give somebody your information, have them actually reach out to you, and then blow them off.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. And you're being a bad person then, bad human.
Actually, I think I'm going to segue
Oh my
to
gosh, am I doing that to this girl?
segue. So, interesting thing is, we, of course, I've shared my plight for expanding friends and for us both to get more friends. And the other day, my daughter had to bring in her corgis to one of her corgis to the vet. And while she was in the vet waiting room, there was another woman who was just gushing over her corgis, who was in there for getting, I think her cat was getting chipped. And she struck up a conversation with my daughter about her corgis and invited her to go on morning walks with another group of, I think, 4 people who had corgis as well. And this woman was in her 50s, I think my daughter told me. And so she gathered, it was like, okay, and was kind of looking out on my behalf, but she got called into the waiting room. She came out, the woman had gone through the trouble of writing her contact information, leaving it with the receptionist. So my daughter has this information and she's sharing it with me. And my plan this coming week is to reach out to this woman and to go on a walk and see what that brings. But when you look at that whole scenario, what that woman had to talk to my daughter in a waiting room. She then had to follow up and leave, a piece of paper with the receptionist. My daughter had to take that. She's going to share it with me. There's a lot of steps in there, a lot of places where you could just fumble that and be like, yeah, whatever. But to both sides of that, it's like, I think it's a good thing for me to do, whether, it pans out or not. But to not follow through with her would make her feel bad and limit her from doing that, perhaps.
And that was pretty bold
forward.
of her to do that. It's one of those things doesn't this happen to you all the time, where you meet somebody and you're like, as they're walking away, I should have gotten their information, but you didn't. Yeah. And I do that all the time, where I'm like, like you meet somebody you meet on the pickleball courts, or something like that, and you think, this is another couple, or I like the way that we play together. This is great. But you just don't take that extra step. And that is so
do you remember, was it about 6 months ago? Maybe it's been even longer. We were at Weens, and our server at Weens.
Oh, she was lovely.
Oh my gosh. And she's like a mountain biker, and she was talking about all the things she did.
Yeah.
And like I did. I
can't remember what her name was.
The information with. She never got back to us. And I thought she would have looked at us like, I want those women as my friends.
Exactly.
Heard nothing from them.
Yes.
Felt awkward.
Yes.
And also disappointed because she looked like she ticked all the boxes. I'm like, ooh.
I know she looked like us. I mean, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Same age, same relative fitness. She was talking about cycling, and evidently she was just being polite to us because she was serving and wanted a nice tip
or something.
But
or maybe
so putting yourself out there can be and making yourself vulnerable.
Yeah. Which is not easy for anyone. I mean, it's not easy to expose yourself in that way. In this day and age is even harder, because I mean, this next generation of kids, they don't do anything in person. Everything is. I know so many kids that don't even have any local friends.
And
all of their friends are
have
online.
a job that you're in office,
and they don't.
There could be people who never will have an office job.
Right. And how do you meet people then?
Yeah.
I think this might be the only way to actually reach out in some way on social media or on Facebook notes, whatever they on Nextdoor or I always think joining a sports or a social group. There is that meetup website that you can, whatever. Like I was actually childless by choice. I joined that, and my husband and I went to one meeting, and what we realized is that's a really weird thing to have in common with people, and maybe that's not.
Were they like swingers and stuff?
No, it was just, I mean, we actually met people. Were very nice. It was just not. we had nothing else in common with them. You know, there is that trickiness
Hey,
as
you
well.
don't have kids? I don't have kids.
And yeah, crickets
And
from there
done.
on. I mean, our group of volleyball players, and then we had a separate group of mountain bikers in San Diego. They were, some of them were a bit like us. They were, you know, did not have children and were active. They biked and everything else. And then, I don't know what, I guess the biking group, most of them had kids, and then we lost them. The volleyball group sort of disbanded as we all got too old to play volleyball. That's really what came down to volleyball. So pickleball is a new sport that you could join to, you know, meet people, and other sporting events that you can do. Golf, I suppose you could join a golf group or things like that. So there are other ways.
But if
of
you're
meeting
still
people.
working, and many people are still working in their
in
40s
our
and
age,
50s, and definitely in your 30s. And so many of those things, like I had mentioned before, are at a time that you can't accommodate.
Right.
I mean, even with my flexibility to be able to do something as early as 2 or 3 in the afternoon, it's not when those people are doing those things. They're
Right.
doing it like first thing in the morning. And as you point out, it's either like at dark 30 where you're like, yeah, no. Or
There is
it's
a
just time
selection
you
of the
can't do.
population that loves to do things before work. We are not them.
Yes.
No. That is just not in my...
No. Yeah, we're not the lay around, sleep till 9 type, but I'm not the, hey, we're up and doing things at 5:30 and getting them done before we show up for work. And
We are the get up and work at 6 a.m.
Yes.
and then be done by 3.
I work with a lot of international people, so my schedule starts really early. I'm taking meetings as early as 6 a.m., but the beauty of that is then my day ends at 2, and I've put in a full work day. But yeah, not doing the early morning thing.
Well,
when
and
when
I
it's
just-
dark,
Yeah.
I just can't
And
do
we've
that.
just learned that it, you know, by getting your day started early and getting done early, and especially in daylight savings time, there is time at 2:30, 3 o'clock to actually get on a bike or go somewhere in the daytime. Whereas if you work an 8 to 5 job, you don't see the sun. That's
No.
it. Your day is
especially
done.
in the Midwest. Oh, those were the dark
Oh, the
days.
dark
when you were
days in the
going to work
Midwest.
when it was dark and coming home when it was dark on that train.
Yeah.
Whew, don't know how I did that.
I don't know how people do it now.
I know one of the other things we had tried too a couple months ago was, you know, were there apps out there to help connect us with
Right.
like-minded people? So we tried, what was it, Bumble
Bumble
for Friends. And that crashed and burned on us.
I think it was the
people
$35
were looking-
fee that
well,
killed
there
it.
was a $35 a month fee, which, okay, but I don't know, the ones that we were connecting with were really wanting wing women to go to bars to meet men.
Right.
And that seemed to be the common denominator in there. And we're like, oh,
Yeah.
well, that's not really what we're
go on
looking
one?
for.
no.
No,
Because we didn't want to spend the $35 for
Well,
one.
we did the 1 week trial, and then when I saw what a couple of my matches were, I was like, that she's just looking for a wing woman for the bars.
Right.
Well, that's just not.
Yeah, the
Not our
other
thing.
aspect to our friendship that is interesting is that our husbands actually get along, and that is even trickier because as hard as it is to find female friends, finding couple friends where both of you get along with both of you. Like I actually like Ed, you like Casey, Ed and Casey like each other, we like
They're similar occupations, and they're both very introvert / extrovert. I think we were describing it. It's
yeah.
like, once you get to know them, they can be pleasant and all, but in their nature, it is not to reach out.
Right. But they're
At
both big
all.
cyclists. They love to
And, like,
ride.
but the funny thing was, so when we initially met, and then we realized, you know what, we have more in common. Maybe we need to do a few more things together. And our relationship started to evolve in that first couple months. We're like, we've got to get the boys together.
Right.
We know they will like getting together. And I remember very specifically, it was at our 50th birthday party that a friend of ours had thrown for 3 of us that were turning had birthdays, wasn't it? Like Tony's and you and I were the 50th. I think it was 3 of birthdays at our house. And that was the first time our husbands were in the same proximity. And we literally grabbed them and said, you two need to talk.
Yes.
Ed,
we made-
Casey, Ed,
Force them together.
talk.
And then we had to take it one step further because we knew both of them would
set up a
never
play date.
reach out. Yes, we set up a play date for them to go biking
It was a
together.
bike riding play date. And then that was kind of history with them because they realized it.
Although
they were in the same boat.
I hate to say it, we still have to set up play dates. Like today, I was
Yeah,
like,
they wanted to go golfing, and it was like, she had to call me.
Casey
Casey's
wants
trying
to go
reach
play
Ed.
golf. So there is that
Wow.
with the
We
still have
ones
to
who don't use their phones on a regular basis. But yeah, that evolved as well. But they were both in the same boat. My husband's group of friends had been ones through soccer as well, and Casey's friends had been the ones that do
Downing.
geography.
Yeah.
So they were isolated.
Exactly.
But they're men, and I don't know that it impacted them with the same.
Well, men tend to have the same friends that they had forever and don't really make new friends as through life unless they do have good friends that are in proximity. I don't know how men
Yeah.
I'm just
Well, unfortunately
Casey-
for my husband, he's lost several friends in the last couple of years
Yeah.
to illnesses and such. So his friend group really thinned in the last few years.
but none
anyway.
of them were close proximity either.
No, but like Mark,
still-
Mark was the soccer friend, right? So he saw Mark 3-4 times a week prior when we were in the
Right,
throes of
right.
soccer, and they would golf. At
Oh,
least
they would
once a
golf
month.
every once in a while. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's a challenge too. Is
So they benefited from this original next door post as well, because I mean Casey and Ed see more of each other than anyone.
Yeah.
besides us,
yeah. They do. They get together. They're golfing right now.
because both remote workers also another
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
So that interesting phenomenon. Yeah, so I think a little more about the sort of initial evolution of our friendship. So it started off with we show up there. I was looking around this group going, yeah, I don't know if this is going to be something I'm going to stick with. There was a few really bizarre people who showed up, like that one who wrote the book about Mary Todd
Should we
Lincoln.
say that?
Yeah, she was extraordinarily hippy dippy, and it was almost like she was there to promote her book.
I kind of got that too.
And she had like a couple copies for us, and I was like, oh, is this what this is going to be? And I forget, what was the book we had read? Was it the one about the plane crash and the guy who swam with the girl?
I think so. I can't remember
the book
the name
was
of it.
okay, but the questions weren't particularly
So one thing I realized when starting a book club, I read everything. I'm a voracious reader. Voracious? That's the right word. I'm a big reader. Cut that one out. Clip that out.
You should just pause it and then create it your own definition.
yeah.
I have a ginormous vocabulary.
Voracious is the real word.
I have a ginormous vocabulary. No. Anyway, so I read a ton, and I read all genres. I read everything from teenage vampire fiction to
Another
historic-
thing that we have in common as well.
yes, that's true. So my thought when I started this book club was that I also wanted it to have no limits. I did not want to only read Oprah's Book of the Month Club or whatever, and I didn't really want it to be so much about the books themselves and more about ways for us to get to know each other as women. So in a book about a whodunit, rather than questions are, what did you think of, why did Bob do what he did?
When did you know who did it?
Right. Questions like that, which really, who cares? You read the book, you either enjoyed it or you didn't. I wanted to have questions more like, have you ever been in a situation where you wanted to kill someone? Not real, not seriously, but well, I know Dylan has, but most of the time her husband.
I got your back, man.
But yeah, so I wanted it to be like that, and unfortunately, maybe others had been in book clubs prior that they were just used to normal formats of book clubs, and so they read the questions at the back of the book or whatever. I did not enjoy the format.
They were treating it, many of those initial ones, which wanted to treat it like it was school. And
Yes.
this is where I'm going to sound extra judgy here. But I
You
felt
judgy?
like
No.
I felt like it was a way for them to try to flex that they were smart or intelligent,
Yes.
and that they were grasping for that. And it's like, we're not here in school and this isn't your chance to you wrote the better essay type thing. That's not what I wanted out of the book club. Like Elle was saying, I wanted it that any general story could come up with a very generalized question, even for someone who might not have finished the book, but the general question could have been something like, have you ever been in a situation where you lied to someone you loved and because it was the right thing to do, it would save their feelings? Because that was something that happened in the book, not dissecting the particular character that did it in the book. And then have that, everyone go around and do circle time, so to speak. But we would encounter some people that it was just like, here's the question, and it was specific to the book. And then, everyone would go around and say their thing, and then, they'd have their turn. It wasn't really a organic conversation. It felt a little bit like you're back in English class.
And I think the women in our book club now would agree that some of the best discussions we've had have been based on that sort of question, where it's like, what was the biggest regret you've ever had in your life? We read
gratuitous book promotion time here.
Yes.
I think one of our favorites, and of course it was my book club month.
Oh, was it? I didn't remember.
The Midnight Library. If you haven't read and or listened on Audible to the Midnight Library,
do we know the author?
We had the best discussion.
You gotta give some trigger warnings to that one though.
Yes. Okay. But the best discussion we've ever had at a book club came from that book.
It's a wonderful book. It has a dark start, but it gets better.
Yes.
Get past the dark start. It just evokes so many questions of what could have been in your life. And, at our age, there's a lot of those questions. We have a lot of those what ifs. And I think it's so interesting. And the questions and we had and the answers we got.
Yes.
With our book club group.
We got to know some of the women in our book club, new way from that discussion.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I really wanted out of book club. I wanted, it sounds corny, but I wanted to escalate our friendships, because I feel like our friendships,
we don't have that much time left.
Exactly. Our friendships are very superficial. We see these women once a month. We drink wine together. We play bunco together. We do this. And I feel like in many ways, our friendships are not terribly deep.
Right.
And I was looking for the kind of relationship that you can, when the shit hits the fan. Oops, sorry, I said shit.
When you need someone. Yeah, when you need someone to help you bury a body. Yeah.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I think that's a very Midwestern thing, right? Because we were longing for those really deep Midwestern relationships. And again, not wanting to lump Californians in a group, but it's been really hard to get Californians to kind of open up in that same way that a Midwestern.
I was going to say this earlier, but I bet the woman with the corgis is from the Midwest.
She gave me that vibe.
Yes. Okay. 'Cause I know that sounds terribly judgy and terribly.
The sweeping generalizations and
Opinionated, yes,
stereotypes there's a reason stereotypes are stereotypes, though. It's because statistically things fall into that.
Oh, no, I was going to say we both married Californians. We did not. Your husband is from also from Chicago. My husband is from California, Southern California in particular. And his whole family, they're lovely. And I love them and they love me. But that's where it stops. They do not extend that love out to very many people. And that I found that to be the case. If I'm in a grocery store line and the woman in front of me turns around and chats with me, I would almost bet you $1 million that they are from the Midwest somewhere. And that's, Iowa, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, any of those Midwestern flyover states. They're probably from one of those places. I guarantee they probably are not from Southern California, because that is just not the vibe you get from Southern California folk.
The hugging, the touching, the more intimate interactions, whether it's, telling people about things and also them feeling, vulnerable. Like, hey, if they got a flat tire, that they'd be willing to give you a call. They'd be like, what? No, I'll call AAA.
Yes. My mother-in-law fell and broke her hip. And they called us the next day after my father-in-law, who has macular degeneration, drove himself home at 4 a.m. or something. And we were pissed. But the reality is that's just them. You just don't bother anyone else. You just don't
Inconvenience them.
inconvenience anyone. And our family is so funny, and I know Dylan's family is the same way. It's like, you know, if I have family in town and I don't have enough bedrooms, I could probably call Dylan and go, hey, can my cousin stay in your guest room? And she would say, absolutely. Now, my husband would think that is completely nuts and so weird, but we would just find that normal. Or borrowing a car. We borrowed their... That's a whole nother episode. We borrowed their Sprinter van this summer to go on vacation. And my husband thought that was the weirdest thing, that we would borrow their Sprinter van. Why would they loan it to us? That's just strange. But that's very Midwestern. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a whole nother story of what happened to said Sprinter van. Anyway, a story for another time.
That's a great cliffhanger. I almost forgot what happened, but now I remember. Like, oh yeah, that is good. That's a good story.
Another day.
Oh, the Sprinter van story.
Yeah. So we could touch on some of the topics we're planning on bringing up. We could.
Yeah.
Do a
Oh, I
little
like that.
closing section
All right.
and
All right.
So going forward, we have, as we've alluded to here, several different tangential stories, as well as, you know, topics that we'd like to address. You've heard us talk quite a bit about staying active and doing different activities and what we like to do, and the places we've done, what we found successful. E-bikes. Love e-bikes.
Love 'em.
E-bikes have opened up
And
our
I'm
lives in a way that regular biking at our age and ability, and the great equalizer with our husbands.
And trust me, I biked across the country. I am not a mamsy-pamsy cyclist. I'm a serious cyclist, or at least I used to be.
More serious than me.
Yes. Well, no, used to be a BMXer. But anyway, and the e-bikes are... One, it was the great equalizer between me and my husband, which is huge because he is unbelievably
Now we can ride
fit.
together instead of apart.
And yes, I could never keep up with him. Now he's gotten an e-bike because he realizes how fun it is to not suffer. Biking does not have to be a sufferfest, but anyway. So that's
and then our introduction and now subsequent mild obsession with pickleball, and then not only physical games and sports, but mental, and how
Trying to keep your mind sharp.
keeping our minds sharp. And of course, one we're going to dabble in because we can't not is just the political climate this year. And one of the barriers we're going to be coming up against is what happens in your friend groups when you have very different political views, and can our friendships survive this
another year?
Because it was rough 4 years ago, and we had some casualties, I think, from that. And so I think
a lot of people had casualties 4 years ago, and I think it's going to be
this one's going to be even worse.
Yeah. Another thing we'll talk about is we joke about how Dylan and I are the highest low maintenance or the lowest high maintenance women that we know, because I have always considered myself terribly low maintenance, and yet between eyelashes and nails and hair and everything else that we do, we have tried just about everything.
Yes.
And we know.
We'll talk to you about the things we've tried and what's worked and what hasn't. I mean, Instagram shopping. Yeah, we've tried that.
Yes. We actually thought about naming the podcast We Tried It, because we have tried everything.
Yeah.
And Dylan will share with you in future episodes her journey through Ozempic or Wegovy, whichever.
Semaglutide, GLP-1s, Mounjaro, etc.
In which she's lost 65?
75 stone for those of you Europeans out there. I've lost 5 stone
70
over
pounds?
the course of a year.
1 year.
Took me a year.
Yeah, but it's amazing.
Yeah, that's been life-changing.
And my struggles with just losing the 10.
Yeah.
I just have, menopausal 10 to lose that I just keep losing and gaining and losing and gaining. And we'll talk about that as well in future episodes.
And then we may have alluded a little bit to, we're huge animal lovers, pet
Massive.
lovers. Actually, in the studio that we're in here right now, there are 3 animals and 4 more downstairs accompanying us here. So huge animals, always have been.
Big
and
supporters of rescues and things like that.
Yes. Ella's done some fostering and just supporting animal rights and such. So
Yeah, I like
that's
I like
another-
animals more than people. I've
you
always
get-
said that.
Yes, I know. During COVID, we absolutely we're feeling that dogs greater than people. So, but we hope you guys will stick with us on this journey.
Bear with us.
Yes,
Bear
bear
with
with us. A bit of self discovery as well. If we get to talking through things, and
We're just hoping to have fun. And if anybody wants to comment on topics that you want to hear us do, that would be great. And we'll
and
see if
then
we
in
can-
the vein of we both love soup. Our soup of the week,
Oh,
I'm going to say, is lobster bisque. Picked up the Trader Joe's lobster bisque today. Is going to be my dinner.
Oh, I thought you were making lobster bisque. 'Cause she makes an
Well,
amazing
yeah, so
lobster
I
bisque.
I have to order that lobster for this. This one, the Trader Joe's lobster bisque, is awesome. I'll probably throw in a little bit of sherry there, and then I've recently gotten into making sourdough bread, so I'm going to be
Also very
making
good.
I
I
some
don't cook.
sourdough bread slices with the lobster bisque. So soup of the show, lobster bisque.
Lobster bisque. On that note,
Yes. See you later, alligator.
we'll talk to you next time.